We're good to go. All right, if everybody's ready. We'll go ahead and call to order the June 9th, 2022 regular council meeting of the town of Tallulah Falls. And I'd like to start with a moment of silence. Amen. I need to have a motion to approve the agenda for us. Tom makes that motion. We have a second. I'm still reading. Joey seconds. All in favor? Unanimous. All right. Need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Okay. Craig makes a motion. Tom seconds. All in favor? Joey?
Yes.
Okay. Right. Passes. And now attorney report.
Have anything specific to report, I'll just sort of address the items.
Okay. The blue line,
Oh, is that on the agenda?
not what you were gonna, not what you looked into about the
Wait, okay, well then I do have some. So I've talked to the guy at Blue Line, it's our point of contact. The hang up, I guess, on the legal end of it was the indemnification agreement that they had presented us from the Georgia Department of Transportation. What that basically is a standard form that says if you're going to put stuff in GDOT's right of way, you've got to sign something that says, you know, hold GDOT harmless and indemnify them for anything that happens. Aside from indemnification agreements generally being a bad idea, in the context of local governments, they're illegal because for a number of reasons. But number one, it's a gratuity, so you know you can't have a local government agree to take tax dollars and use it to pay a third party for something. So at any rate, that's been sort of the hang-up. In talking with James Hardiman, he says, well, there's sort of two different issues at play. There is the cameras that would go up that issue the citations. And on that front, sounds like that's the Blue Line deal because Blue Line will remain the owner and operator of the cameras subject to the IGA. The indemnification agreement is in the context of the radar warning signs. What those are is the thing that goes up that flashes and says you're going 85 miles an hour. So that. Our contract with them basically says those signs will be ours. They will put them up for us on 441, although there's no requirement that they necessarily be there. The idea is that it conditions behavior. So if you drive through, before you get to the camera, the docks are speeding, you've got, you know, warning signs that says you're going too fast. And they hopefully encourage people so that. But because Blue Line, once they put it up, is basically out of the mix on those signs. That's why they've asked us to sign the indemnification agreement with GDOT. If we don't want to sign the indemnification agreement, then Blue Line will provide us with those signs. And they can sit in the warehouse, we can put them up on some other road, doesn't require the indemnification agreement. Negotiate with GDOT, tell them our legal position on that, whatever. The other things, I've proposed a couple solutions to Blue Line on this that we're working through, but they haven't had a chance to make a decision on. And the other thing may simply be, you know, there are other cities and different localities that do this, and what James was telling me is that they haven't always had to do the indemnification. That's usually something that sort of becomes part of the process in the local district. States divided into 13 districts. We're in the Gainesville. So it's more of a practical side of getting with our local point of contact, hammering that out. there's, as I said, there's at least 3 ways to make that happen. The signs still go up on 441. If none of those pan out, there's still another way to do it, but none of that really has any bearing on the program as a whole. Sort of set in motion about the campus being operational, the school goes back in session. There's a process of that too, but it doesn't really impact that. So that is kind of the update in broad strokes on where we are with that GDOT form. Something that we continue to work on with Blue Line, something that we should be able to get hammered out and know what direction we're going to go prior to school returning into session. But everything is still running on schedule. Cameras themselves, which I guess that gets us to the DOR form, which we'll get to, I guess, down under new business. Talk about this. That's the last piece of the camera program.
So the indemnification isn't something stopping or holding up the cameras. So, you guys know that before we get into our budget hearing. So,
Are they agreed to do it from 7:45 to 3:45 during the day as well, or it's not in there?
I think it's an hour before to an hour after school.
We want that change.
I think it's whatever, I think statutorily, there's a maximum time frame it can run. So I think the way it's set up is to run whatever the statute says.
I think the statute is that you can start doing it an hour before and run all through the school day to an hour after. And at one point, we were talking about only doing it for an hour before until classes started. Doing it twice a day instead of through the whole day, but because buses are coming and going all the
Always,
time.
every period.
So is that what you understand? We're doing it the full time allowed. So that's the way I understood it too. All right, so we'll keep plugging along on that. We'll go ahead and open the hearing for budget hearing for our fiscal year 2023. Now, is there need to go through the budget, or you just need to hear those in favor of those opposed?
We had a work session.
Um,
Next week after that.
No, that will be to adopt.
About.
That'll be a special. So
I mean, if anybody is not familiar with the budget that's in the room or online, I'll be glad to go through it. And then some of you have already been here for that. But
so this is what was presented at the workshop. Any changes?
we did not make any changes from the last meeting, which was not really a meeting because we didn't, but nothing came out of our informal meeting with people that were here. So, I mean, just generally, general fund, we're at $398,720. Revenue and expenditures by department or legislative, 5,470, executive, 1,180, administrative and general governments, 151,405. Municipal courts, 20,000, police, 125,425, fire, 32,720, roads, 37,900. A $24,000 interfund transfer to the water fund, and a small contingency of $620 for total expenditures of $398,720. Water fund, we've got $65,000 for user fees, $1,500 tap on fees, $500 late fees, interest, and an interfund transfer from the general fund of $24,000 for total income of $91,050. And then operating expenses, $91,050. We don't have any capital budgeted out of the regular water fund, but we do have it in another capital budget, so I'll get to that in a second. On the hotel motel tax, we're budgeting a slight increase of $6,000, and that's split 60-40, just 60% goes to the general fund and 40% we contract out with the Tallulah Falls Business Association. And then for our capital budget, our SPOS fund, we've got $15,571 from prior year SPOS 6, and we've got $5,571 planned to use on the city hall new entry to the shower room, and then recreation loading zone improvements, $5,000, and kayak storage, $5,000, for a total of $15,571. SPOS 13, prior year income, got $22,100, and all of that's going to be on the road projects. And then we've got our ARP grant funds of $63,858. They've already given us half of that. We should get the other half this year. And all of that is going to be spent on water system improvements. That's the summary.
All right, so at this time, we'll, since this is a public hearing, it's an opportunity for anyone to speak in favor of the proposed budget. And then we'll give equal time for anyone wanting to speak against it. So anyone in favor? Speak.
Yeah, I'm in favor of your budget.
Okay.
I think you should pass it and move forward. Do what you need to do.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? See any activity online? All right, we'll go ahead and close out that part of the hearing. Anyone want to speak in opposition to our budget? Still no activity, so we'll go ahead and close out the public hearing for our 2023 budget. We will have a special call meeting on the 23rd of June to adopt this budget. So any other comments can still come in via email or letter to the clerk. All right, we'll move on to our public hearing for our sign ordinance. Go ahead and open this up. I believe it's been circulated, what planning and zoning had sent up to the council. It's been out there for a little while. So we'll go ahead and open up for public comment in favor of the sign ordinance as the planning and zoning is presented. Oh, introduced, I'm sorry. Okay. While she's getting it, what this was basically to get rid of a conflicting sign ordinance, put everything under planning and zoning, and then revamp and renovate what was there and get us something that's easier to understand.
And the procedures for the public hearing are posted here and they're available for anyone that wants them. Planning and zoning, I don't know how much of detail I'm going into, but planning and zoning went through both ordinances that we have from the zoning ordinance, and we have a chapter 28 signs in our Unicode codification of ordinances. So they went through both of those and kind of focused on one, and are recommending to the council that that this ordinance, as they've amended it over multiple meetings, be adopted. they are wanting to repeal what's in the current code and replace it with one ordinance. So there's not in two different places, it would just be in the one.
Yeah, there's two, but the one in the zoning code is much smaller. So that's between the two. And the question becomes where should we have that option? So the way it stands right now, planning and zoning is with separate ordinance. Just talk about the general, rather than having two, we're gonna just combine.
So we'll open the public comment on this public, for the public hearing on the sign ordinance. Anyone wanting to speak in favor of these changes? Everybody muting themselves on Zoom. Here, okay, we'll go ahead and close out for those in favor and anyone opposed to the sign ordinance. All right, we'll go ahead and close out the public hearing for our sign ordinance, and we'll have we will, no activity on Zoom. And we have a spot to talk about the sign ordinance and new business later in the meeting. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on to our public hearing for the zoning text amendment. This was something that was brought to the council's attention a few months ago. We asked the planning and zoning to revisit the setbacks because we had done away with requiring building permits for certain types of buildings. And so we created a document for them to go through, and they approved this and sent it back to us for us to review and approve. So basically what we'll be doing is defining playhouses, dog houses, and unconditioned space, and adding those definitions to our current zoning ordinances. And then we would amend section, we would add to section 1500, we'd add 1501.7, stating that all setback requirements in that section would no longer approve to buildings that meet these definitions of unconditioned playhouse or doghouse. Basically temporary type structures that can be moved around would be exempt from setbacks on the property lines. So that's what came back to us.
It kind of follows the ordinance that we had done December of 21, maybe regarding like walls. And other types of
Yeah, walls,
structures.
fences, hedgerows.
And at that time, we were also changing what needed building permit to be stuff under footage. So it's kind of a companion change to the next evolution of it. A couple of changes that were made in the, I don't think any of them changed the intent of it, but in the memorandum, the application there adds the three definitions. In 1501.7, the references playhouses, dog houses, but not unconditioned space, but it has a clause that says there were such other structures or buildings that do not require a building permit, which I think brings in that unconditioned space. So in writing the ordinance there that's in the packet, I've included the three definitions. It's kind of up to y'all whether to keep it that way or keep the language of what initially it said about for such other structures. If you want unconditioned space, that defined term in section 1501. The other thing that planning and zoning had recommended was adding a limitation to the exemption that says if the dog houses, playhouses, and things like that are exempt, provided they don't have a permanent foundation. So if you go out there and you pour a slab for your dog house, it takes it out of the exemption. That's not conceptually on that, that's not a terrible idea, but then you sort of get into question then of if you have a wooden floor that is actually attached to and built into your doghouse as opposed to a four-wall doghouse that has the ground underneath it. Does that trigger this or not? And, you know, that's sort of something that I guess we could talk about too. But in general, the way the ordinance before you is amended is in section 2, or it's the amendment to 1501.7. There's the inclusion of unconditional space in the second line before. So it's a question of, does unconditional space go in that serial clause of playhouses, doghouses, or such other structures? Do you want to leave it the way the memo said, or do you want to include the unconditional space in that? Then the last sentence, roughly, the foregoing notwithstanding the exemption set forth herein shall only apply to unconditioned space, playhouses, doghouses, other structures, provided that they don't have permanent foundation. That is the language from planning and zoning, and so then the question just becomes to keep it the way they recommended, keep it the way the initial memo had it, or do something else. Those are really the only, not really changes, it's just more how the language in the ordinance is before you evolve from the memo to the planning and zoning rec, and you got to where it is.
And it does say that doesn't require a building permit, so that puts it under the 200.
Yeah,
Square
200 square feet.
It will-
The question is basically, do you need the permanent foundation statement?
Yeah, so I'll kind of
We
diagram.
can,
Yeah, I'm gonna see it.
we can discuss that when we get to new business.
Sure.
Yeah, I got it.
So that's so for right now, we'll just start do the public hearing part, and that's enough introduction.
Yep.
Then we'll go ahead and open up for public comment from those in favor of this change to our zoning. Zoom. No activity. All right, close out that section and go to those that are opposed to making this change. There's nobody on Zoom, nobody present. Okay, we'll go ahead and close out the public hearing for the zoning text amendment. And we'll move on to old business. And Scott got here just in time. Sorry, it's okay. We discussed at our last council meeting the need to appoint or reappoint someone to the Raven County Water and Sewer Authority. And I believe David did agree. You did agree to do so. Okay, so David Hart would be our recommendation to the council. I'd like to get a motion to appoint David Hart to the Water and Sewer Authority. Joey makes that motion. Scott seconds. All in favor? It's unanimous. All right. Get to work. All right. And I did speak with Dallas Taylor earlier this week and let him know that what the decision might be. All right, now we need to move on to new business. We have 2 seats on the DDA that are coming up for reappointment. I believe the decision by the DDA, the request by the DDA was to reappoint Christy Early back to her position.
As long as she'll finish.
Yeah, right. And then because Keith Nelms is going to be stepping down from the DDA, they want us to consider Bill Turk to take his seat. Now, with DDA appointments, you don't have to live in town. You don't have to be a resident, but you do have to have a business, like own a business or have a business interest in town at least. So, and Bill Turk does. He's got a 2-year picture. So I would like to get a motion to reappoint Christie and appoint Bill Turk to the DDA. Okay, Scott makes the motion, Joey seconds. All in favor? It's unanimous. All right, now we're going to move on to our standard Department of Revenue process. I'll let Warren BLS item, blue line. There are two items associated with this. I thought it was one long document. It's actually two documents.
Yeah, so we'll just take them in turn, but the BLS standard department review process is the first one here. Says basically how they're gonna run this through. You know, I don't have any problems with this. Initially, Mike and I talked about whether we needed to change the agency name. I don't think so at this point. We'll talk about it in the other form. Change the other form regardless. I think this is fine. To some extent, I guess. Tanya, you have any problem with any of this? Okay, so yeah, I don't have
All right. Y'all have any questions about that? Okay.
I think on the motion, if you approve, I would make it a secondary one on the side. That's the chief of the agency.
So I would like to have a motion that to permit Tanya to sign that document. Joey makes a motion, Scott seconds. All in favor? Unanimous. We'll go on to the agreement between the Georgia Department of Revenue and Town of Tula Falls.
I don't have any issue with this either. The sort of putting form of a function maybe, but you know, this, the governing body is the Tula Falls Police Department. The first line says the governing body of law enforcement agency, that defines it as the governing body. I think that means we just strike through Tula Falls Police Department. Maybe Tula Falls Police Department acting on behalf of mayor council or something. It's probably in the town. And the town is authorizing the police department to do that. That's how I read it. But beyond that, there wasn't any Harper. Tanya, you got any Harper in this? So, but on this one, I think what we would do if you wanted to approve is approve subject to changing that. And then just authorize the mayor to sign.
Any other questions?
It says in item 6 that there's to be one administrator, so Tommy will handle all of these services, or?
You know, it says that we have to designate one person or entity to do it.
Yeah.
So I think we can designate Tanya, or might make more sense to designate the court clerk.
Yeah.
But for purposes of approving the agreement, you can approve the agreement as is and then just make your designation. And I don't know, I mean, do you have input on who that needs to be? Or?
They had talked about it before. Basically, it's where I go in and review the tickets and everything.
Oh, yeah, correct. Well, so, all right. So the way that it basically works is they capture the tickets, they send a photo of it with some other documentation that has to go to Tanya because she's the only one that can make the accusation to trigger the court case. But so I guess it wouldn't be Tanya. There is something on here about the holds, which I read it to mean, you know, like if you're convicted or you don't show up to court or something, then you get the hold on your registration. That's probably more the clerk of court. I mean, maybe unless you're in court every time. Which I guess is probably less. You know, I don't know that it matters though for purposes of proving the document. I think it's just who we're going to designate after the fact. That could just be something you decide later. Authorize the mayor to make.
As for the holds on e-services, who's going to clear those when something's been paid? It says we have to designate somebody.
Something for further discussion, but not specifically for being able to sign this.
Yeah, that's right. And as I think about it more, there may be a reason they have Tool Falls PD in the governing body, even though it doesn't quite make sense. So maybe the thing to do would be just to approve the document subject to that change being acceptable to because if I call James Hardman and he says, well, we gotta have it for this reason, because DOR, I don't have to come back next month and do it. But it may just also be.
We can make a motion to approve the document as is, subject to allowance and change of the governing body if required.
If required. Correct. So, someone like to make that motion? Scott makes the motion, Joey seconds, and have Tanya approve Tanya's signature or mine. Doesn't matter, we'll figure it out. Okay. All right, all in favor? Unanimous. All right. I think the motion brought it up to her, as I say. I think she can sign it.
So when does it begin?
Do we have any timeline?
Right in the beginning of school.
Yeah, they won't go active until school starts if they're up in time. And then we got a what, 30 period,
In a month.
a month, that they have to send out warnings before they start sending actual citations, so.
You keep flying through there the first month.
Tanya, question for you. When we say the start of school, I mean, Tommy, I'm assuming you guys probably have like public school, there's a week or so that you
Yes.
are actually, so are we talking? And I'm not looking to nitpick, I'm just wondering if you started it, like when they actually start, if that gives you kind of a week to,
It'd be the first day of classes for the kids.
okay, so it's not on that free time or whatever. You're on your own.
That's 10 months out.
All right,
What about the camps that take place on campus? Still has to be school as opposed to.
all right, go ahead and move on to road bids. Craig sent us bid for doing White Camp Road, and we only had one bid.
Yeah, one day and he won't call me back.
It's getting to be like that around. So, I guess I need to, what was the total LMIG available?
16 with our match, right, roughly. And we're at 2785, so we need full semi spots.
So, yeah, and we've got money in slots to cover that. Okay. So then, I need to get have a motion to approve or to award the contract to our bidder if we can get hold of him. And,
Craig, are you comfortable? I mean, since you only got one
He
bid.
did it the last time. I'm comfortable what he does. Yes. If I can get him to show up.
Tom makes that motion. Have a second? No second? Oh, Scott seconds. All in favor? It's unanimous. All right.
And then we use the remaining from.
Splost. Yeah, we usually rank Splost. All right. Next item on our agenda is the sign ordinance. If y'all want to have some discussion, I'm gonna ask that we table a decision on that. So but if there's any discussions you guys want to have on it. And one of the reasons is there's some items in it that I would like to see addressed, like how billboard signs and other signs are lit. Because I would personally prefer they be lit from the top down instead of from the bottom up to decrease light pollution, things like that. So there's that and a couple other items I'd like to have a discussion. We may want a workshop to talk about some of them, but
And, I think one of them is sort of where to put it. the recommendation of planning and zoning was cleared outside the zoning code, but everything in it relates to, enforcement, permits, everything. is Zoning administrators, engineers, zoning code.
Any immediate input from you guys at this point? I'd like to get a motion to table the sign ordinance to a later date. Scott makes that motion, Joey seconds. All in favor? Unanimous. All right. On the zoning text amendment, to exempt certain setbacks, we had one comment come in from Christy Shepherd saying that she would rather it be on the side and back lot lines, but on a road front, that it be the standard, what's 20 feet. But so I want to make sure that you guys got that information. That was her recommendation. I don't think it's necessary, because if you got a 40-foot right of way, you're already at least 10 to 15 feet off the pavement by the time you get to that lot line. And there's some lots in town. I know Paul's and mine are like a third of an acre. His is surrounded on 3 sides by a road. It kind of limits how we can use our property. Now, I'm not putting anything else. It's not for my benefit, but other people in town that have similar situations. I just feel like if you stay within your lot line, you're already 10 to 15 feet off the road in most places. So I like the amendment basically the way it is, with the caveats that Warren wants to talk to y'all about.
Yeah, this is my very crude diagramming of kind of show you what I'm talking about. Craig, I think, has already got it, so I'm gonna pass it that way. There's the way it's written, and then I've sort of circled the unconditioned space in 2 places that I stuck it in. So if you look at the memo, it only has playhouse and doghouses in that section, but we're adding a definition for unconditioned space that then doesn't really do anything for purposes of 1501.7. But there's the catch-all clause in there that says, or such other structures, meaning I think it does include things that are unconditioned space. And it be unconditioned space that did not require a building permit. So again, I don't think it matters one or the other. But that, and then whether you wanted to include, like we have it, the part about it not having permanent foundation, or whether that last sentence would be struck. So the only reason that a diagram's up there was because as y'all make the decision, if we keep it as is, we can modify the unconditional space or strike the last sentence. So that was more for purposes of when you make the motion. Whether that is, so in other words, it's to help you all make a motion that will keep the ordinance, so this is the ordinance we're adopting, subject to these changes. If you want to make, don't have any problem with the way it is.
Okay, so time to discuss, and if you want to make changes like Warren's suggesting, or if you think Chrissy's recommendation is something we want to consider, we'll just leave it the way it is and move on.
Strike the last sentence.
I don't see the reason why we can't follow Warren's recommendation.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll make then the motion will be to approve the,
Prove it is written, subject to striking the last sentence. Yeah, and I don't know, I mean, I see what they were trying to do. Pretty cool of why that was the recommendation. think it's sort of covered in there.
Our motion to approve on the premise that the last sentence strikes.
Striking the
Last sentence, 1501.
motion. Tom makes the motion. Scott seconds. All in favor? Unanimous. All right. Mayor's comments. The generator out here at City Hall is done. It's lived its life and breathed its last. Well, within reason, because Paul thinks he might be able to make it live again for another purpose, but we're gonna need to start looking at purchasing another one. We're waiting for some bids to come in. I'm expecting, when I priced them online, 17 kilowatt generator without installation was about 5,000. But then we also want to move it, relocate it so that the exhaust isn't right under Linda's window. And that way we can, so that's gonna probably drive the cost up a little bit more. We don't have to get the cutoff box, it's already installed. We just have to get wiring and plumbing done.
How old is that?
Remember when we got that? 2008, 2007, somewhere in
Not
there.
that old, it's the plastic type, right, it's not the old metals.
Yeah, it's a plastic type. No, I'd be older than that. It was the early 2000s when we got it. Jimmy Young was still active, helped decide what size. we need. So, what happened was the oil sending unit failed, and so it won't keep oil pressure up. The oil pressure switch won't let it start because there's no oil pressure. And when they came out to try to do a repair on it a couple of weeks ago, they couldn't get that oil sending unit to replace it with. So we may also look at what it would cost if we put a new motor in. So that is another option to at least look into. So just want to give you guys the heads up on that. I have no other comments, so it's time for public comment. Well, I'll take that back one more. Bill, we've already been through, and you were approved to go ahead and serve on DEA for a 6-year term.
Only 6 years.
Only 6 years. It's only a 6-year sentence.
When does that start? Is that just?
That'll start
July.
July 1st at their next meeting. So
Can I ask? What is the square footage size? What is the square footage size that this apartment?
200 square feet. 200.
So there's something that occurs to me with this. There's something that hadn't occurred to me before now regarding maybe why planning and zoning had the exemption they had in there. Which is, it really comes down to what I was saying about pouring a slab, making it permanent, as opposed to what the intent was. Have the plastic Kmart and somebody moves in there down. I think we're talking about something. So I see that. So what I'm saying is, does that change anybody's opinion if the structure of similar size had a poured concrete foundation? As opposed to being something that needs to be. If it doesn't.
Okay. All right, so we'll move into the public comments section for tonight. David?
Yeah, someone just said to me something about the radios that you guys are considering, the Shen versus the Radio County radios. And I really haven't been too interested in that, but I think there is something that we might want to consider, and that is you do have a school within the city boundaries, right? And if there were to be an incident at that school, it would be Habersham County Sheriff's Department that would respond to that. Is that correct?
It would depend. It would depend on which direction we want to go. If we go with the Abersham system, then most likely that'd be our first call. But if we go and convert to Raven instead, then it would be Raven County. But I guarantee you, Habersham's going to get called to it as well as Stevens County and DOT and everybody else.
But Habersham is more expensive than Raven.
It's because, well, yeah, the radios themselves are more expensive, but it's the maintenance fees that are causing the problem with budgeting right now.
Right.
That's the big thing. So,
Has anybody considered going to talk to Mr. Peavy about that? To see what they think in terms of the security of their school under this situation?
Good idea too. I haven't talked to them.
Well, I just wanted to point out to you that, you know, this community, the town, through the DDA, saved them $2 million on their last bond issue. And happy to do it. But, you know, if they have certainly have a dog in this security issue and the security of their school, then maybe they would be willing to, you know, help the council's budget out of it.
Yeah, they have in the past donated money to the
Yeah.
police and fire department.
If they, was it $15,000 a year or something like that?
Yeah.
Well, you know, $15,000 over 10 years, that's 150 grand. That's less than 10%. Pretty good return on the money we saved them on their last bond issue. I mean, I don't know that they'd be going to do that, but I think it might be worth asking.
We're asking. Yeah.
Just thought.
We'll look into that.
So we're going to talk about the radios.
It's just time for public comment.
The misunderstanding is there's some kind of security issue. Us going with one radio system or another. First off, Habersham system has already said they talk to everybody. They can talk to Reagan, they can talk to Stevens, they can talk to anybody they want. So it's not an issue that we can't talk to them, they can't talk to us. The misconception is that there's some kind of superior technology in the aspect of security with the Habersham system. And one radio system, digital system, is just as good as another when it comes to security. It comes down to price. My opinion in the fire department is that so far, Raven County has been extremely good to us in all aspects, whether it be in equipment or fuel. And I feel that they would be the same way with the radio system. So I think we should actually consider that as a plus when we're looking at the two systems. Should we go with either Raven or Habersham?
Something to keep in mind. Any other public comment, other items of interest? Anyone on Zoom? Okay, we'll close out public comment, and then I need to have a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of litigation. Kelly makes that motion. Second, Scott seconds, all in favor, unanimous. All right, so we'll close out the meeting. Scott.
Thanks for coming, guys.